which is this tax on attention. What are you describing? How would you do that?
We use a phrase that I think hints at what this might look like. When you're scrolling on your phone and when you're looking at content, you are, quote, paying attention, right? And if you're paying attention, they are buying attention. In the real world, that could be subject to a sales tax, a value-added tax. In the digital world, it's non-monetized and thereby is not taxable. And the degradation of attention and the amount of the greed for our attention spans that these corporations exhibit suggests that we need to update our tax code to reflect not an industrial economy, but an attention economy. And these companies will come back and say, if you try to do a value-added tax on implicit attention, it's going to be unworkable. And here's 55 reasons why it's unworkable. And is it going to be challenging to implement that? Yeah, it's also challenging, by the way, to do capital gains taxes on private equity. Like our tax code and our tax enforcers update themselves. But I think the core thesis is very well grounded, that when you are paying attention and they are buying attention, that has value. And we know it has value because they go turn around and bundle it for a price to advertisers. And we simply say, you're paying a VAT based on that. And the VAT is not going to go to the general fund. The VAT is going to go to a separate chartered entity that disperses funds for local journalism.
Are you saying that every website I visit, they're going to be paying a little bit of money based on how long I spent on the site? Are you saying that we are just going to add a tax onto the money they are making from advertising, right? What literally? Because attention isn't what you are taxing here, or the paying attention. You're taxing some kind of exchange somewhere. What is that exchange?
The exchange is not the paying of attention, is the buying of attention. So it is the advertising revenue that you're describing ultimately gets taxed as corporate income for Facebook and the other social media corporations. They pay tax on that. What I'm talking about is the value that they accrue by your time spent on screen, which is quote unquote free, right? You're not paying and they're not paying. And yet there is an exchange there. You are paying attention and they are calculating every single impression of that entire scroll. They then bucket up that data and they do a number of things with it. One, they sell it to advertisers. Two, they sell it to large language models and they try to figure out how we can monetize it. And they are incredibly good at monetizing it. I'm not talking about a VAT on the back end monetization of data. I'm talking about a VAT on the front end of how much time spent on screen. Taxed not to the user of the service, but taxed to the service provider.
So this is a world where Netflix is then going to be disclosing a calculation to saying this was the total amount of time people spent binging or watching content on Netflix, and they pay a surcharge based on that amount of time.
Netflix is not a great example because Netflix is a subscriber model. And so that is actually a monetized exchange. What I'm talking about is the social media corporations who have thrived on network effects that brought people together, and then they took the free content that was created by users to attract
So if TikTok
more people.
moved to a model where it charged me $5 a month, they're out of this tax system?
So what's interesting about this is that some jurisdictions actually require that the social media corporations offer a subscription. So they've already had to put forward what they think the monetary value is of sort of monthly usage, which is a pretty good indication of what it might end up being. But the short answer is no, I don't think that's a get out of jail free card. And you had mentioned, is it every single website? Is it, a recipe blog? No, I don't think it is. And this kind of goes back to Section 230 also. Section 230 in the 1990s was created at a time when it was all recipe blogs and it was Web 1.0. And it was a good idea at the time. So I'm not talking about, you make some blog, paying a tip, blah, blah, blah. No, we're talking about the clear dominant websites that are monetizing people's attention spans, pay a VAT on that. And we try to support those people who are actually doing real journalism and can help reconnect our communities.
Look, I'm all for anything that will support actual local journalism. The difficulty you always have, I think, with any theory of how to do that from the government in an era as polarized as this one, when trust in the media is as polarized as it is how do you disperse that? How do you do it in a way where this isn't just read as a tax on things people like to fund like liberal journalists in localities? I mean, they don't even Sesame Street, right?
It's going to have to be bottom up, not top down. And what that means is you're going to have to see civil society, local and state buy-in to these organizations, philanthropic. And we're seeing green shoots of this. I'm sure you're aware of it as well. In my own district, I see in Newton and Brookline and right outside my district in New Bedford, these sort of startup nonprofit news gathering organizations that clearly have communal buy-in, and yet the money is a problem. As you know better than me, the modern journalism era is a tough place to make money and tough place to make sustainable, and yet it's performing what I think is a public good. I think it has positive externalities that need to be subsidized.